of April 1991. That's the 30th anniversary of Yuri Gagarin's historic first manned spaceflight. The Juno mission, as it will be called, will touch down 8 days later, having conducted a number of scientific experiments on the Soviet space station Mir. Now, with us today is the man who will actually choose Britain's first astronaut, or help choose that astronaut. He's Nigel Bastow, and we've got three prospective spacemen, or should I say space people. They are Georgina Ferguson, Diane Love and David Rogers, and from the Science Museum in London, Dr. John Becklake, who will be taking us through where man will be going in space over the next century or so. So Nigel, here we are. Great, we're about to have the first Brit in space, but when you think about it, I mean, if it was left to the Americans to do, they would have picked some military hero, some scientific boffin or whatever. What do? We go out looking for Joe Bloggs. Now, why do it this way?
Well, it's fairer, don't you think? The specification isn't so tight that Mr. and Mrs. Wright couldn't just be out there doing a normal job. So we wanted everybody to know, everybody have a chance.
Yeah,
and three of them are here.
It's awfully democratic, isn't it? Isn't it? I mean, you know, there was that American movie, The Right Stuff. I mean, what makes you think that, you know, the ordinary members of the public will have the right stuff?
Well, we're not looking for a Superman, a Superwoman, or Adonis. We're looking for a scientist, and by necessity, they have to be fit and healthy. Yeah. But really, we're looking for scientists, so they don't have to be highly specialized pilots or all sorts of things like that. So why not put it out to the nation? Okay,
let's have a look at our three prospective applicants here. Georgina, first of all, you're solicitor.
Yes, that's
from
right.
London. Now, why do you want to go to space?
Well, for as long as I can remember, I've always been an adventurous and determined sort of person, and what greater adventure could you possibly get than to go into space?
Is being a solicitor in London not exciting enough for you now?
Yes, it is exciting, but I mean, this would be absolutely fantastic, and also the chance to further experimentation for mankind would be,
right, so basically an adventure for you, Georgina.
Yes.
David, how would you see it?
Well, if you see an advert to become an astronaut, it makes other jobs seem boring in comparison. I mean, when I saw the advert, I was quite surprised to see that I fulfilled all the criteria, and so I thought,
what sort of
might as well give it a try.
were those?
Well, you had to have a science degree, you had to have an ability to speak another language, and you had to be fairly fit.
Yeah. What other language can you speak?
I can speak French fairly well,
yeah.
A little German and Dutch.
Diane, where do you come into all this?
Well, I saw the advert and I thought it was just targeted at me. It was just everything I could do. Languages, I spoke Russian, I learned Russian at school, and I always wondered why I'd done it and if it would ever come in useful. And
this could be a distinct advantage, I
yeah, it could be. And I'm a scientist, and I've also got a very general approach. I don't like specialisation, and I hate all the specialisations that I've been forced through in my academic career. And the chance to do biological experiments, medical experiments, psychological experiments would be a really interesting thing to do, as well as the basic physical experiments.
Right. Dr. Becklake, as a career move, what are the prospects like being an astronaut over the next 10, 20 years or so?
I'd love to talk to these three in 2.5 years' time if one of them wins, to see what they intend to do. I doubt whether they stay in the astronautics field. We've been flying in space now for about 25, 30 years. 70 years ago, man first flew the Atlantic. Nowadays, 25 million people fly the Atlantic every year. We're going to go into space more and more in the future, there's no doubt about it. The same reason we climbed Everest will mean we'll go to the moon. The Americans have plans, according to Bush, only about a week ago, to put man on Mars by the year 2020. Now, I have a feeling that's a bit too long. I have a feeling man will be having a permanent base on Mars within 20 years from now, about 2010. And I rashly said to one BBC reporter about a week ago, they will have 1 million people living in space in 100 years' time. And I'm sure we will. We can't prove it. But with the population explosion going on here, with the advance of technology, all the predictions you make from history have been wrong. Everyone has underestimated where we'll be in the future.
So the sort of things we see in the movies, Star Trek, Star Wars, that's all very achievable?
Well, let's hope Star Wars won't be achievable, but things like Star Trek will. I'm sure we will have living colonies on Mars with people actually breeding there and maybe living all their lives there within 50 or 60 years. People like these.
See, that's very good, but I'd rather step in 50 or 60 years from now. I'm not sure I'd want to do what you're setting out to do, because it really must be quite dangerous, though. Does the risk ever annoy you, Georgina?
No, it doesn't at all. It really excites me, actually, the danger side, and also most of the space missions, you know, have been very safe on the whole.
So Nigel,
I was going to say, we haven't told them all the bad bits yet.
Well, so what is next for them? Okay, you know, they are 3 of many thousand applicants. What happens next?
Well, my job is to provide a shortlist to the Juno mission.
And that closing date finished today. Yeah.
And the shortlist will be up within the next sort of week or so, of 150. And they will then be progressively put through medicals, and then weaned down over the next few months until the end of October. And they'll have some sort of short tests, mental tests, physical tests, nothing too strenuous, but just to sort of funnel it down, if you like, till we get to the 2 or 3 that are the most applicable. And then, finally, 2 of them have to go off to Russia.
But why do the Russians want to share this with us?
Well, we're going to pay for it, or British industry is going to pay for it. They didn't just come along and say, fancy sending someone up with us in one of our rockets. It was a two-way thing. There were 1 or 2 people from our side who, it was a joint initiative, if you like, and it was discussed in theory, and then it became a reality, and here we are.
Mm. And obviously this space flight is going to be different in so many ways because it's commercial.
That's right.
How do you feel, Dan, about being covered in all sorts of hamburger adverts and whatever?
Maybe I'll get to wear my company logo on my sleeve, I don't know.
If they pay for it, you might.
Yeah,
I mean, what are the plans? I hear that you know, they plan to beam all this live as docking happens and everything, all up in space.
Oh, I hope there'll be
with adverts placed in prime locations all over the
Well, that's conjecture. To be fair, that's conjecture. I mean, just exactly what will happen on that front remains to be seen. But in terms of the mission itself, forgetting the advertising for the timing, it's bound to be shown. I mean, we can't have a Britain go up in space and not be allowed to see it. So.
But I think the good thing about it, it's a serious mission.
Absolutely.
I mean, we all had doubts. I had doubts when I first heard about it that it was going to be a gimmick. But let's be assured there's going to be scientific and engineering research done in space on this mission.
Yeah, but what do we really achieve? I mean, there's a lot of conjecture about the sort of the massive amount of money that's spent in these sort of projects. What do we really get out of it?
But it's peanuts. You say massive amount of money. I think someone said 16 million. I don't know what the British
astronaut.
Per astronaut. I don't know what we spend on cosmetics a year on betting, but I bet it's about 500-600 times that. And therefore the money is really small when you consider all the problems we've got to solve on this Earth.
If it was just a joyride, you could argue that it was a lot of money. But it's not. We're going to have scientific experiments done in zero gravity or virtually zero gravity conditions, which we can't achieve down here. And therefore there's every chance that scientific progress will be further quite rapidly and significantly. And we just can't do that down here because we can't simulate those conditions. So it's not just a joyride.
You just can't predict the spin-offs you can get from something like that. I mean, the Americans didn't know the spin-offs they were going to get from getting the space program, so we wouldn't be able to tell either, but there would be spin-offs.
Really excites you, doesn't it? Yeah. What are your friends?
Serious, you could tell.
What do your friends think of all this? What about your family and that sort of thing? What do they say to you?
Well, they're really excited for me. They
Come on, somebody must think you're half mad.
She's getting married in 3 weeks.
Are you? You're getting
yes,
married?
On the 12th of August.
What does your fiancé think about this? He's going to lose you for a while.
He'll probably be glad to get rid of me for a while.
After 2 years marriage?
Yes. No, but he's really excited. He wanted to go, but he was rejected, in fact.
He was rejected? Why?
He didn't have the right qualifications.
I think one of our operators screened him out on the telephone. He didn't get sent a form.
No, looking around, Nigel, at these 3. I mean,
no,
basically,
it's not fair. You can't.
I mean, but basically, I mean, they come up to scratch so far.
They're good. I mean, they're all fit and healthy. They're all well qualified. They've all got some linguistic ability.
Yeah.
That's why they're here. I mean, obviously, there are a lot of people in the same boat, and it's a tall mountain to climb. But they all look good. Yeah.
Well, you sure I can't put an application in? I mean,
you can. Yeah.
What, I've got another 40 minutes or so to get it in.
Well, but if you have to have already had it, actually. This is the closing date for the written ones. The phone calls closed last week.
Well, look, congratulations getting this far anyway. Hope it goes well. Who knows, we might have you back and you'll be absolutely famous if you all go up in space.
Oh, they will be.
Good luck with it anyway, and thanks for telling us about it today. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, from things terrestrial to affairs of the heart, and an inside story which is set to captivate all of us who have a romantic streak. It's the story of the fairy tale romance between a beautiful American movie star and the ruler of the world's arguably most glamorous country. with all the world watching on the 18th of April 1956, in a scene which could have been taken straight out of one of her movies, Grace Kelly, an American actress, walked down the aisle wearing a bridal gown made for her by MGM and married one of the most eligible bachelors in the world, Prince Rainier III of Monaco, and together they became a living legend. Geoffrey Robinson is the author of this book, Rainier and Grace. Wasn't that a lovely wedding?
Wasn't it gorgeous? And what a beautiful setting. In fact, the only difference between the cathedral at Monaco and Kibble Palace is that the cathedral is air-conditioned.
Geoffrey, it's a very personal book. How did you come to be allowed to write it?
I'd lived in the south of France for 12 years during the 70s. It was hell, but somebody had to do it. And I got to know Princess Caroline. After Grace's death, there had been a number of books that had been published that were pretty trashy and pretty tacky. And I think that Prince Rainier got to the point where he was frustrated at not being able to have the real story told. And I was at the right place at the right time, and he knew he could trust me. And the only thing he asked me, the only obligation I had to him, was to tell it the way it really was and to be fair, which is what I've done.
It's a gentle book, it's a fun book, it's very interesting to read. Their romance, how did they meet?
Well, they met in 1955 at the Cannes Film Festival. Grace had been suspended by MGM and had been invited to Cannes and didn't want to go. And when she got there, they said, we've set up Paris Match magazine said, we've set up a picture session with the Prince in Monaco. And she said, oh, I'm much too busy, I'm just not interested. In fact, when they originally asked him to pose for pictures with some actress, he wasn't interested either. The stars were working in the right direction for them. That's Grace.
That's Grace, isn't it?
That's Grace the day after they met. I mean, she was just so gorgeous. And they met and fell in love because they actually shared an awful lot. When they were able to discuss their lives, they realized they were both lonely children. They were both good Catholics. They had both suffered at the hands of fame.
And they were both very shy.
And they were both very, very shy.
Their relationship, in fact, developed as pen pals, didn't it?
They met and they started writing letters to each other. It probably couldn't have happened in any other way. I mean, the fairy tale really does live. They fell in love by the post.
And there was a little sort of Irish leprechaun in the guise of Father
Irish
Tucker.
leprechaun priest named Father Tucker, who was not much of a matchmaker. In fact, he even said, I've never had any experience at this. But he realized, here's Grace Kelly, an American queen of the cinema and a good Catholic. Here's Prince Rainier, his own Catholic prince, and wouldn't this be a nice idea? And he sort of put the whole thing together.
Do you know, it's amazing how the Kelly family took it so much in their stride. Mother Kelly actually expected the wedding to take place in Philadelphia.
Well, yes, Ma Kelly said that she told Rainier, you know, American girls get married, it's their parents who do the ceremony, and Grace will be married in Philadelphia. And the whole thing was a little bit out of Ma Kelly's grasp. When she first met Rainier, yes, there they are, that's showing the ring. By the way, that's the ring she wore in high society.
Really?
Yes, she wore that in the film. When Ma Kelly first met Rainier, she said, oh, you're the Prince of Morocco. She had it slightly wrong.
Of course, the wedding had to take place in Monaco, but there was a lovely piece in the book where Pa Kelly comes down and says to this prince, hi, Sonny, did you sleep well? I mean, little touches like that.
Well, it's little things like that where Pa Kelly finally accepted Rainier. After all, he was introduced to him, and he said, what do I call him? Do I call him Your Majesty? And they said, no, you can call him Your Highness, so that'll be fine. He eventually started calling him Ray, of course.
Rainier took his role seriously. I think he was the first monarch for something like 300 years who regarded it as a full-time job.
He was the first one ever in Monaco who regarded it as a full-time job, and he took it extremely seriously. It's 40 years now that he's been in office. He's the longest-serving monarch in the world.
But they were a very good team, weren't they?
They transformed Monaco. Somerset Maugham called it a sunny spot for shady people. And in the 20s and 30s it was. There were some very suspect people hanging out there because it was a gambling-based economy. Rainier and Grace transformed it forever and made it a very viable, very chic, upmarket resort of world-class fame.
Do you think she was very frustrated at not being able... She was offered film parts and she turned them down.
She loved Hollywood, and she loved to talk about Hollywood. In fact, the last time I saw her, she told me a lovely story about giving advice to a young actor. And she said she never gave advice after that, and I said, why? She said, well, this young actor came and auditioned. I was supposed to read with him, and she said... I said to him, look, you're married and have a family and you don't even live in New York and it's a very tough life, and my advice is to keep working for your father in Connecticut and do this as part-time as an amateur. And I said, oh yeah, who was the actor? She said, Paul Newman.
In fact, she couldn't really go back to films and remain a princess, but she did go back on the stage with wonderful poetry readings, didn't she?
Well, she found a way of returning to performing, not as an actress playing a role. She had been offered the role in Marnie that Tippi Hedren played, opposite Sean Connery by Hitchcock. She went back as Princess Grace to perform poetry readings and to show the kind of woman she was and the way she handled things. She was performing at Stratford with the late John Westbrook, and John Carroll, who was directing her at one point, said to her, dear lady, is there enough light on you? And she said, oh yes, but I think there should be more light on Mr. Westbrook. And John said to me in an interview, I have been in the theater for all these years and performed with everybody. No one has ever said, I think there should be more light on Mr. Westbrook.
Jeffrey, we just showed a picture there of Grace with Diana and Charles. She was very helpful to her because she recognized the shyness.
Well, that was the first night out as the official royal fiancé for Princess Diana. She had come out to a poetry reading in England, in London, in fact. I think it was a charity for the Queen Mum. And
sorry to interrupt, but charities were her really strong thing.
Oh,
the Red
very
Cross
much
Ball
so.
in Monaco became a star-studded celebration.
Very, very much so. She was a huge generator of money for charity.
And Jeffrey, we have a picture of the whole family together. Rather sad, really. It was the last Red Cross Ball.
That would have been the summer of 81, yes. It was, no, summer of 82, I beg your pardon, in July of 82. That was the last Red Cross Ball, about 2 months before she was killed.
She was a great, fun-loving person, wasn't she?
She was wonderful. She was at Persepolis for the 100th anniversary of the monarchy in Iran. And at one point, a very formal dinner, and at the head table, at one point, she leaned forward and burst some buttons on her dress, which could have been a terribly embarrassing moment for anybody else. She absolutely broke up and had a fit of the giggle. She found that very funny.
Jeffrey, it's all in the book. It's a good read. It's a warm read about a loving family. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Well, it's that time again, and what can I say about him? Good-looking, charming, debonair. Richard Jobson is none of these things, but he's back by popular demand, mainly his, to cast a critical eye over the new top 10.
Welcome to the dungeon. This is platform 38 underneath the Kibble Palace, where anything from music to fashion will be dissected, stitched back together, or absolutely rubbished. Now, who's getting it today? Kirsty MacColl's going to be talking about being a singing mother, and the River Detectives better be good because the charts aren't. The video showing is from German techno house band Die Krux. Total filth and pure nonsense moaning helped put Little Louis' French Kiss straight in at 10. Slipping and sliding out of summer are Soul to Soul, followed by the recording equivalent of a bad dose of wind from Bette Midler. At 7, Chaka Khan chucks up a remix. I Don't Want to Lose You Now sings Gloria Estefan, especially now that you're buying her records. Throw S and Kick S are parts of Bobby Brown's On Our Own. And at 4, a record suggesting that the whole record buying public has gone camp. London Boys, London Nights. Jive Bunny and the Master mixes are at 3, and the highest new entry is E.T. and Friends, The Bros, Too Much. And Kylie Cole and Sonia will not be stopped from loving, but will she be stopped from singing? After a brief sojourn, Kirsty MacColl is on her way up. In fact, she's up the stairs having a picnic, and that's where I'm going to meet her. Meanwhile, her new video.
Thank you for the days, those endless days, those sacred days you gave me. I'm thinking of the days I won't forget a single day, believe me. I bless the light, I bless the light that lights on you, believe me. And though you're gone, you're with me every single day, believe me. Days I remember all my life, days when you can't see wrong from right. You took my life, but then I knew that very soon you'd leave me. But it's alright, now I'm not frightened of this world, believe me.
Kirsty, lots and lots and lots of girls in those charts. Any good?
Some of them, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah?
Well, some, not all.
You're going to be in there next week, maybe?
I hope so.
Yeah. Now, when was the last time you were in the charts?
Christmas '87 with the Pogues.
Oh, a wild record now.
That was a really good record, that was.
It was a brilliant record, but Wild Men. I know you're tired of talking about that, aren't you?
Yes.
So we won't ask you about it.
No.
Now, before that, you were away for a long time, weren't you? There was no sight of Kirsty MacColl for a while. What were you up to?
Well, after I got married and got pregnant and had a couple of kids, I wasn't really sort of writing that much at the time, and I didn't want to put out a load of cover records, so I sort of took a bit of time off and did some backing vocals for other people.
Like who?
Talking Heads and quite a few other people, you know,
Rolling
various
Stones,
people.
Did the little period you worked with the Pogues, did that kind of inspire you to get back into it again?
Yeah, I think being around people playing, you know, real instruments sort of like all day long is kind of very inspiring to get back down to playing. And I hadn't picked up a guitar for years, and I just suddenly thought, yeah, let's go for it, you know, and picked up the guitar and started writing again, and it's all come together now.
And what kind of area have you gone into this time?
Well, it's quite organic, the music, you know.
Organic?
It's all played by, you know, it's not sequenced and sort of sampled, and, you know, it's not all synthesizers, it's real musicians playing
And you can eat
real
the records.
instruments. You can eat the record when you've finished with it, yes.
Right. I mean, even just by your name, it almost, like, it lends its hand to a kind of folky thing. Is there a folky element to Kirsty MacColl?
Well, there's definitely a Celtic side to Kirsty MacColl, but it hasn't been totally obscured by its time in Croydon, no.
Now, the people you used on your album, which has had some amazing reviews, which has been quite nice for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, I was really pleased. I don't think I've ever had a good review for anything before in my life.
Yeah, you know, I've never had a good review in 13 years. But listen, you've used some very, very good musicians. Who have you used on this album?
Well, we've got Mel Gaynor is playing drums on some tracks. He's Simple Minds drummer, and we've got Pino Palladino who's playing bass on some tracks, and Dave Gilmore who's playing a bit of guitar on a couple of tracks, and he's in one of those big bands, you know.
And of course, the husband's involved as well, didn't he? He produced it.
Yeah, he produced it, did a great job.
Oh, the husband done it.
Well, he had to, didn't he? I'd have changed the locks.
Listen, I'm going to have to cut you short there, because we're going to look at a wee Scottish band who actually prove the point that not all Scottish musicians are grotesquely ugly. They're called the River Detectives, and you might actually like them.
I dream about leaving.
Okay, that was Chained by the River Detectives. On Wednesday, I'll be looking at the wonderful world of high fashion music business freebies and asking the question, does it influence a record into the charts or onto a show like this? And the answer must be no, because would I accept a freebie from anybody? Now tonight, 11:05, BBC Two, the best band in the world are on. Don't miss it. Fairground Attraction.
I don't want half-hearted love affairs. I need someone who really cares. Life is too short, hey Dad, to play silly games. Trust the women first. I won't do that again. It's got to be. What's that? Oh, it's got to be worth it, yeah. Too many people take second best. I won't take anything less. It's got to be, yeah, perfect young hearts are foolish.
Absolutely brilliant Fairground Attraction there. Now, do you remember the Cold War or the arms race, or the bad old days when Russia and America didn't talk but shouted names at each other and built bigger and more lethal weapons? When nuclear war seemed a real possibility, support for the anti-nuclear groups was at its peak. Today, with Mr. Gorbachev in power, a man who wants to do away with nuclear weapons, support for CND has dropped away. These are now changed days from 1957, when anti-nuclear campaigners took to the road and demonstrated very heavily against weapons. Well, one of CND's best-known members, Bruce Kent, begins another protest walk today. He begins at Aldermaston at the start of a 250-mile march, which will end on August the 6th, the anniversary of Hiroshima. He visited the garden party before he set off. Bruce, with Russia and America now seeming to move towards a state where hopefully we'll have no nuclear weapons, that's their stated intent, haven't you in a sense been overtaken by events?
Oh, I don't think so. I think this is a really important time to keep this push going. Actually, the Americans haven't said that. Reagan said it, but Bush hasn't said it, that he's going to get rid of nuclear weapons. I think there is a new feeling in the world that it could happen, and I think a lot of public opinion is needed to keep that push going on.
But isn't that public opinion in this country swinging away from you because your membership's dropping, isn't it?
Well, I think that, yes, it is dropping. There was a very high membership when the cruise missiles were coming. I think there was a great sense of panic. But it's still a very high membership. We've still got over 60,000 national members in CND, and Scotland is extremely strong indeed. But I think that the numbers of members doesn't always reflect the amount of concern. I think there is a lot of concern still, and it's growing into environmental issues and the waste of money which could be spent on hospitals and things. So it's broadening out. Before it was, we're going to have war tomorrow. Now it's broadening out into other issues too.
But is this walk in any sense then a cry to be noticed? Is it just a big publicity stunt?
Oh, well, I think everything's a publicity stunt. If you're in the business of trying to change people's minds, you've got to get heard. And in that sense it is. But I think it's very serious, the walk, because we're going through all the conservative heartland around London saying, let Britain be first for a change. I mean, these things don't defend us. Why should we spend all this money on them? And we're trying to get that discussed right in the centre of kind of right-wing power.
Could you understand me if I said to you, now this is all very well you preaching, if you like, to us, but shouldn't you be going to developing countries, some of the more fundamentalist countries who are in danger of getting the bomb within the next couple of years, who could be a real threat, and saying, let's stop it here?
But there will be a real threat. And there is a treaty called the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which we've meant to have signed. And we're ignoring it. We're not negotiating anywhere. And actually we're supplying uranium now to Iran from Namibia. It's going out there. So we are actually calling conferences to support the Non-Proliferation Treaty. And I do travel the world a great deal with exactly that message. And if you think Britain is entitled to its own bomb, then how on earth can we say to other countries you can't have yours? And that's what our government's trying to do.
Why do you think here in Britain we have not gone for a unilateralist policy? When the Labour Party tried to get that through, there was such a hue and cry. They've now changed and done an about turn. Why have we not gone for it?
Because I think that we are just incredibly British. And when it started, the whole bomb thing, Ernest Bevin said, we've got to have ours. And he said, with the